Hi, welcome to part two. Before we start actually building the second step, which is this ball, and I'm also going to include the little T that goes inside the ball that holds it down. There are some minor corrections to part one, such as the orientation of the top hole that you can see in the what's showing there on the screen. And I also, when I printed it, the supports were so difficult to get out that I ended up breaking this little piece here. So I figured out a way to actually create it so that there's no need for any supports anymore. So I'm going to show you how to make that fix, and then we'll carry on with part two proper. The first change I made was the dimensions of this rectangle at the top. In the other design, this was 6.5 and this was 8. So I just changed those values. Now, unfortunately, because I didn't constrain my design right away in part one, when I changed the values, I got some incredibly weird geometry and it all went haywire. You can see from this that is actually still not properly constrained because it's all blue. So that means if I would to grab a point, say, and I can actually change it. It's in this case the missing constraint is simply the rotation. So in order to really do a design properly, you should constrain them. So I'm just going to take this line and take that line and make this collinear, and that snaps it, and you can see the whole thing's turned black. That's ideally how you should do it. So now if you wanted to say change a value here, you can do it without repercussions. This is how I made the change for the no support. I just, as you can see, it's still blue, so I just freehand drew this. And as long as the points, the lines never went outside of the actual drawing, I was able to just stop it on the center line and then revolve it around. So when you see the finished sketch, you can see that how it rotates. So then, of course, I had to recut this hole, so I just selected and pushed through. Now when you print, you don't have any supports because nothing creates the conditions for supports. So I found this to be, obviously it uses more plastic, but it's a lot easier to print. You do not need to make this change in order to follow the rest of the tutorial if you don't wish to. I also rounded the top and added a little bit of fillets just for attractiveness. You don't need to do this to carry on with the tutorial. We're going to now draw this ball, and we'll use the main body as the reference, and we'll make it so that it rotates. We are going to create a new component because only components can have movement between each other. So you couldn't have movement between, say, two bodies. So we'll right click on the main topmost level and say new component. It selects this as the parent, and I'm going to give it the name of ball joint and click OK. Now that becomes the active sketch on which we can base where we want to build. So from here, we'll create a new sketch right on the top and use the circle command from the center, and we'll snap to that edge, and then we'll put a line right across here so we can revolve that. From here, we can click on it, revolve, choose the axis here, and we'll leave it as 360 degrees. And that has created the base ball. Now let's cut the hole that we see here through the ball. So we can actually just go back and use the original sketch here and edit that. And I'll zoom in a little bit, and we'll project onto that square. That should do it. Click OK, and then finish sketch. From here, I'll turn off the body, turn on the sketch, and I'll select the two halves. Actually, zooming in would help. And turn the bodies back on. Hit E for extrude, and we'll say symmetric and distance all. Quick edit to point out that when I did all for the cut, it actually cut right through this piece. So turn the body off. Turn this body off when you do the cut through all. And that should cut right through. We're going to edit the same sketch again, and create a new rectangle that just goes past these two outer ones, and the total distance being 19.75. So we'll right click on the original sketch, edit sketch, zoom in a little bit. Now here it's a little tricky because you can't exactly draw rectangles. Well, I guess you can, but you'd have to rotate them. So I'm just going to use the line key, and I'm going to try to somewhat make sure that I see 90-degree angles there. Otherwise it can get a little tricky. So you can actually snap to this point and then come back up, and that should mostly constrain. We'll come back because this is not perfect right now, and we'll do the same here. Okay, so this is clearly not completely right. So what we'll do is let's do some perpendicular constraints between, this one already has one, so we'll do between here and here. And we'll do between, well, that one has one, so between here and here. That's starting to look good. Now let's do a distance between this point and this point of 19.75. And then we'll make this line and this line equal. And that should have fully constrained this, so no matter where we grab it and try to move, it doesn't move. And of course, the key is that it's completely black. So we'll finish the sketch, and then we'll just cut. We'll just select those 3 panels. It's actually 4. You'll see in a minute, and then we'll just extrude it upwards to cut out the material. So I find turning the bodies off is easiest. We'll select Shift 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn the bodies back on, hit the E key, and then just pull straight up. That should be enough. Now we'll create this little sketch on the end of that rectangle that we just had. So because we don't have a plane here to draw on, we'll create one right there. So I'm going to turn off the body to make this easier to work with. Turn on the sketch, select that line, construct a plane at an angle, and type in 90 degrees. Now we can sketch on that line. So I'll select, on that plane. Now we'll create the sketch there, and we'll project to this point, maybe the line as well for the midpoint, and that one. Click OK. Now I'm going to use the circle key, just create a dimension here. And then I'm going to grab this and lock it to the center there, and then select that point and make them coincident. Then it's really important to add a line across here, because if you don't, your picture isn't finished and then you can't actually pull it. And then we'll just use the trim key to get rid of that top piece and finish the sketch. From now we want to take that and pull it all the way across. So in order to select it, it'd be easier to keep the body turned off, select it, and then turn the body back on. Hit the E key, and we're going to pull it all the way across to this back wall here. So we'll just do distance to, change distance to object, and then just click that back panel. Make sure it says cut, and click OK. And that has done what we wanted it to do. We'll create this sketch, and then we'll pull it up 6.5 millimeters a cut, and then we'll push it down all the way down through the object. Now we're going to reuse the same sketch again, and this does create some mess here, but I'll show you what I mean. Let's use the line command from this corner out to here and back. And now we need to tidy this up because it's not well constrained. 90 degrees between these two, 90 degrees between these two, and then we'll dimension this to 17, and that looks good. Okay, so now we'll turn off the body, and we have to be careful when we're selecting this to extrude, because you see this line cuts through this corner, and we don't want to miss that corner. So I'm going to click it, and then I'm going to shift click these other two things, turn the body back on, and then hit the E key and drag it up to 6.5, making sure that it's cutting. Okay, so that's cut the hole. Now we're just going to do the same thing but push down with one minor difference. So I'll select these 3 using Shift, turn the body back on. Now, but before I push down, I'm going to actually make sure this body's turned off so that I don't cut when I go down. So I'll just pull, and I'll just say distance all. And now we have what we need. We'll create this sketch, which is just a circle and a line, but it's actually 10 millimeters above the center of the circle. So we'll construct an offset plane from the rim and just bump it up 10, and then we'll actually do the sketch on that new plane. I'm going to turn the bodies off here, and we'll project onto the center and then use the circle and dimension that to 25.5 millimeters. Now this was actually a lot of fun, making a line that intersects this all the way through. So actually what I did is just created a construction line, and I just kind of arbitrarily drew it through here, making sure not to touch anything, and then constraining it. So select the line, Shift select that, and say coincident. Then do the same again, and this dot coincident, and then this, and this, and then this, and this. And believe it or not, that was actually the simplest way to do it, but I've actually constrained it in the wrong place. That should not have been there. It should have been over here. So instead of just redoing it, I'll see if I can show you how to move it. And this, delete that constraint and move it. So we'll start that again. So this and this will be constrained with coincident, as is this and this. And that's the end of that sketch. Now we're going to create this sketch, which is actually quite hard to do, but and it's on a 90 degree from the plane that we just built. So over here on our sketch, we'll select this line, construct a plane at an angle, put in 90 degrees, and we'll select this to sketch on. Now we need to project a little bit so we know where we're drawing. So I'm going to use that line, that dot, this line, and that dot, and we'll start drawing. So I'll start with a line. From here, I'll go up about 12, and then we'll do another line on a 45 degree angle, which will be 135 because it's the other way. And another line going straight up, and then another line at 135 degrees, and we'll carry on with that line out to just past the center, I would say, and then down to roughly where that is. So we'll bring that to here, and then come in a little bit and go down. So that's roughed in. Now we'll put some dimensions on that. This is 6.65. We've already got dimension here. This needs to be with that. And this needs to go up a little bit. And this brought down. There we go. That's looking a little better. Then we'll do a construction line from the center, this to here, and then we'll make that a horizontal line. And that's starting to take shape a little bit. And what do we have going on here? We'll join these together. Coincident. And we want another construction line from here to here. And then I'm going to make the distance the 6.65 divided by 2 divided by 2. And that should give us the distance from here to here. So I'll take that point, and I'll dimension them out to 6.65 divided by 2 divided by 2. And then we'll make that a horizontal line. And that's a little different from the sketch we had before. I just used a construction line and then took the midpoint. It's the same thing. Gives net results the same. There's still a constraint missing. It's the from here to here should be 4. And that should resemble our sketch. There's something else missing here. We need to put a line. We'll make it a construction line from here to here, and then constrain it as a, there we go. So let's have a quick look. Everything looks good. Now we want to revolve this, and I'm going to create a new body because with a shape this complex, it's nice to be able to turn things on and off, and we'll join it up later. So I'll revolve this piece along this axis, and I'll tell it to create a new body. And click OK. The rectangle that we had cut through to the extremity of the ball actually now needs to be just redone and pushed up all the way through to the top. So let's do that. So I'm going to turn off the body here and select these sketches here. Now that tricky one in the corner might still get us. Possibly no, it won't. Okay, so turn on the body and hit the E key, and we'll say we want it to go to Object, and we'll take the top here. And set it to cut and click OK. So now we should have our piece has come all the way through, which is perfect. We'll next create this sketch that just allows us to dig away this piece for this neck to be able to fold into the base. So we need a plane on which to create that sketch. So let's turn on the last one we used here, and then we'll just offset it out a little bit. So we'll do an offset plane from this, and we'll just go out, maybe we can just be outside of it a little bit, and click OK, and then we'll use this on which to sketch. I'm going to project straight onto the neck of this, which gives me the 4 parts that I need, and then I'm going to turn off the ball portion, which will help a little bit with creating the sketch. So we'll just put a rectangle that snaps here. I'm going to put a construction line down the center, and then I'm going to put a solid line just arbitrarily down the 2 sides. And then we'll distance these from here to here at 6.45. Then I'd like the 2 distances from here to here to be, we'll make this distance 6.45 divided by 2. And that makes them equidistant here. And we can finish the sketch. Now we'll push the pieces that we want. Now we only want the 2 sides here, not this. This is the actual channel we want to keep. This is the other reason for turning off the body, because if we cut into this, we don't get what we want. So we'll choose these 2 pieces, press E, and we'll push them in using the cut command, and we'll go right back, maybe say to the object of this plane, and click OK. Now to thicken this neck, you really ideally would just pull this surface out to about here, but because it's curved, you can't do that. So what we'll do is actually create a drawing on this face and then just project down to make the rectangle, and then we'll just push it into here. So I'll click this surface, create sketch, and then I'll turn off the body, and I can see where I want to create that. So I'll create a rectangle, and I'll snap to here, and then I'll turn the body on and look where I want to do this. So I'll project to there. Perfect. Click OK, and then we can actually do another rectangle from here to here. and finish that sketch. Now I can click on that surface, hit E, and just pull it until it's partially into here, and then just click join. Now I'm sure there's a more beautiful way of doing that, but that does seem to work. We'll turn on the other body now. And the only last couple aesthetic things to do is to fix this gap here, which when you print does leave some support in there that you have to tear out. So we'll fix that. And then we'll also just fillet this because it actually folds into the neck. So let's do that first. It's the easiest. I hit F for fillet. Take those two lines, make it 1.5 maybe. Now this piece, you'll note that I still have two bodies, and I do want to join this to this, but in the action of taking the top of this and extruding it down, I'm actually joining it automatically here. So if you'll note over here, we just lost a body. So this is the whole thing now. Just so you can see what it looks like completed, we'll turn on the bodies here and go back to the main view. Now let's make this rotate. So we'll create we'll assemble a as-built joint. The two components are this and this, pretty simply. The motion here will be rotational, and to select the snap point, what I find is zoom in, and I think this edge is really good. But once you find an edge you like, hold down the control key, and then you can actually click on the actual pivot point, and you can see it's actually rotating very nicely. And everything happens to be correct on this, so I don't have to mess around with it too much. So you can just grab this and rotate. Now, on my original model, I did set limits so that the impossible couldn't happen, but I'm not going to do that for this video. In the introduction of this video, I did mention that we would be drawing the T. Now, given what you know so far, you should be able to just look at these dimensions and build this. The way you won't know the overall length, but you can just use your calipers or measure in the model for the overall length. All it has to do is protrude enough so that you can get an elastic through it underneath. This length will also depend on whether you actually backfilled your model for better printing. So have fun with this, and you can do it. You got this. And here's another view for you. If you'll notice that the bearing, or where it rotates, there is a flat edge, and then the other edge I just compensated for it by turning it in. This won't make a lot of difference, but when you're assembling it, you want the flat edge to be along the flat edge of the ball. But if you get it wrong, it doesn't really matter. These are all very loose tolerances in there because there's no reason for it to be super tight. Well, thank you for watching this far. I hope it was interesting and fast enough paced not to put anyone to sleep. I will be doing part 3 soon. I'm going to make this piece with some additional customizations for width. So stay tuned for part 3.